Hello, and welcome to GBH Amplifies the Bay State Banner. I'm your host, Ronald Mitchell, editor and publisher of New England's Bay State Banner News. And today we're here in the GBH studios in the Newsfeed Cafe in the main branch of Boston's Public Library, right here in Copley Square. We have a live audience, and thank you guys for being here. Today we are here to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Bay State Banner and its commitment to 6 decades of journalistic excellence in community news. We are celebrating the 6 decades with many staff members who have been with the paper over many, many years. In addition to celebrating the 60th anniversary of the paper today, we're also going to celebrate it through the State of Black America Forum series. Those forums will start here in our taping of the Amplify conversations, and they will move on to community conversations throughout the city depending on the forum. Today, we're going to start with our wonderful guests who all are former members of the staff or editorial staff of the Bay State Banner. Joining us today in our celebration of the banner are, and I'm going to start from right to left, Yawu Miller. In fact, before I really get into introducing all the guests, I wanted to share a little history of the banner. The Bay State Banner, for those of you who don't know, was founded in 1965 by Mel Miller. Mel created and maintained one of the nation's top black-owned newspapers, continuing in the legacy of our nation's black-owned news publications. For centuries, these news publications were the only place black Americans could go to truly see positive and true images of their stories and culture. Papers founded by individuals like W.E.B. Du Bois, who founded The Crisis and published the Crisis newspaper, and William Monroe Trotter, who founded Boston Guardian. Those publishers were committed to providing community news in a time of struggle. Their papers fueled our black community with knowledge, strength, and joy to take us through what must have seemed like an insurmountable struggle. So we at the Banner today are humbled and honored to continue that legacy. So thank you so much for watching. So as I was saying, today we are joined by past and present members of the Banner. First, we're going to talk to what I affectionately refer to as the old guard, the OGs. I'm going to start off to my right with Yawu Miller. Yawu was a former managing editor off and on for nearly 3 decades. Thank you for being here, Yawu. Next to Yawu is Dorothy Clark. Dorothy was a writer for the paper for many years and is currently a contributing editor. Thank you, Dorothy, for joining us. To my left is our former managing editor for multiple decades from 1984. He is still a contributing editor to this day. Brian agreed to come back. Brian O'Connor. Brian O'Connor, my man, his name. So Brian is a former managing editor, as I said, for decades, and he agreed to come back to work with us in the transition when we purchased the paper, and we have not let him go. We will not let him leave. We love this guy. Thank you, Brian. And last but certainly not least is the world-renowned photographer, Don West. Don, we love your images and we love you for being here. Don has been with the paper for multiple decades, and his photographs have illuminated our story and our community's story for all of those years. So again, thank you all for being here. We really love that. So I'm going to start off with you, Don. When did you first start? Yeah, you're first up. Get ready, Don. You're the man. So when did you first start with the paper? Do you remember how you got involved?
Well, it's an interesting beginning. Am I mic'd? I don't hear myself.
Is he loud enough? Yeah, you're good.
I'm good? Okay. In around 1982, I returned to Boston after living in California for a while, and I was doing public education for sickle cell anemia. Heard about the Banner and wanted to get involved in some way. So I did get involved doing layout and paste up on a regular basis, and got to know folks there and got to know Mel Miller. And having been a photographer as an amateur for many years, I felt I'd like to get a couple of pictures in the paper. So I submitted one. First one I gave them, front page. That was the instigation, and I just followed that.
You felt that front page
I
glory?
felt that, yeah.
You got that glory and boom, you were on it.
That's right, so I wanted some more of that.
I hear you. So Brian, I think you were up next at the paper.
Yeah.
In our timeline. What brought you to the paper, and what were the early days like?
Well, in 1984, I was writing freelance around Boston and working at a French restaurant just a few blocks from here, so sort of ungainfully employed. and I wanted to get a newspaper job, and I heard the Banner was looking for someone, so I went in to see Mel Miller, and I showed him some of my clips. He goes, "Oh, these are all feature stories. But
Fluff.
Yeah, fluff." He said, "I want some hard news." So Jesse Jackson was actually running for president then. He was out at a rally in Framingham and having a big confrontation over some comments he had made about Jews in New York. So I went out there and I covered it, and I came back Monday morning with the story, and Mel said, "This is pretty good." So he put that on the front page with a photo by Don West. And the rest is history.
That front page, that thirst for the front page. Yeah. Dorothy, I think you started around 1984, if I'm correct, something like that. How did you end up writing for the paper, and what was it like when you first started?
Well, it was a little later than '84,
Okay.
but when you're having fun, time flies and you lose track of your years. So I too had returned to Boston from living in Western Massachusetts, working for a newspaper out there, which it was time to come home.
Okay.
So I was out there for 7 years after finishing college, and I was kind of gainfully unemployed as well. So I said, the Banner. I'd like to work for the Banner. I'd like to work for a newspaper that covers the Black community in Boston. And Brian and I were talking earlier, so perhaps there was an ad that I answered, but I waltz in
And there you are,
and
plugged in. And
there-
what was it like? Was it fun? Was it hard to get people to talk to you back then?
It wasn't. People really liked us, or liked the fact of us that we were there, that we were looking out for the community or doing coverage that had not been done. We just didn't see so many faces of color in
the legacy
medium.
of Black media.
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad. And next up, Yawu Miller, the sage. Yawu, you've been at the paper for probably the longest of all, with of course exception to your Uncle Mel. Tell us about when you started and what it was like in the beginning when you first got there.
So, my first job in 1976 was sweeping up and emptying ashtrays and cleaning the bathrooms. I was able to work during a semester off from college in 1988 as a reporter under Brian's tutelage. And so after I graduated, I came back, and in 1993 started reporting under Robin Washington. It was a very interesting window into Boston. Learned a lot about the neighborhoods in Boston, about the history, how politics function, just every aspect of Boston through the lens of the Black community. And it's really a fascinating way to look at the city.
Thank you. Thank you for all your years of commitment to the paper. I know without you, it wouldn't have maintained its wonderful journalistic quality for so many years. I know that's true with all of you folks who worked in the managerial and writing staff. So thank you so much, Yawu, for keeping it going and prepping it up for our purchase and our ownership, because we're really excited about what we're doing today, and we wouldn't have been able to do any of that without what Mel, of course, and you, and all of you at this table created. So thank you for your hard work. Don, I want to follow up with you. Can you share with us over the decades the most important stories that you felt you covered in images that you created?
Well, first I would say I would agree very much with Yawu in terms of the Banner was like a window into the community to meet so many people top to bottom in the community and have so many opportunities in that sense. And imagine in all that time, what could be the best? Nelson Mandela. And I happened to be his photographer for 2 days, which also gave the Banner an inside look at Mandela and what was going on that particular day. 2 days he was here. So I actually got a chance to shake his hand. Oh. And he used to be a boxer, and he had a huge hand. So when I shook his hand, it disappeared into his hand. But it was a wonderful moment. It was at the Kennedy Library.
Yeah, your
that day.
photo of him is your photos of that trip that he
It
did
was a
amazing.
wonderful 2 days.
Amazing photographs. Yeah. Brian, I know that over the decades that you were with the paper, you've covered many stories. But what are some of the most important stories to you in those early days?
Yeah, there are a lot. Number one, the Mandela's visit was undoubtedly one of the great ones. And because it was a fusion of the paper's commitment to Pan-Africanist community, we had covered the fight against apartheid right from the start. And it was his arrival in Boston was a fusion of politics, of global awareness, of local politics, of culture, and it was incredible outpouring.
It was one of the biggest examples of all of the different organizations coming together to fight for freedom and struggle, and
you know,
a positive image.
And the only other time in Boston I've felt the same energy was the dedication of the Embrace statue, which was an unbelievable outpouring that had emotional, political, social, and economic significance.
All the different elements.
Exactly. But also I covered a lot of politics, so definitely seeing the expansion of the Black Caucus, the creation of the 2nd Suffolk seat, Senate district seat, the black seat, but the elevation of Deval Patrick, the first black governor, and Barack Obama's visits to Boston and what that meant for the city, the country, and the world. Those were all phenomenal stories, and that left a mark on me, on the city, and the world.
Yeah, those are amazing topics and amazing stories. Thank you, Brian. Dorothy, you're up next. Do you recall some of your favorite stories from your tenure?
I still have my press credentials from Mandela's visit.
Okay.
And,
Top
and they're very clearly visible in my
in your home, yes.
The fact that we were such a small staff and we did everything, so you got to do some politics, education, coverage of police. And I think that was, general assignment reporting was what we
So
would
as a
be
reporter,
doing.
you weren't pigeonholed to one category. You weren't a sports reporter. You were able to cover various different topics.
Right,
And,
exactly. We needed that.
what stories do you think helped to move the needle for civil rights the most while you were at the paper? Did you cover, redlining, or did you cover any? Come share. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Share a little bit of some of the important
trying
things.
to think. My goodness, redlining, yes, and it's still around.
yes. Well, evolution. Evolution is a slow process.
When we had our first black school superintendent. Okay, so we.
I know that back in the early days of the banner, Mel and you and the staff of the banner, of course, you was with Yawu, fought for jobs, opportunities, business opportunities.
Yes.
Right from, again, 1965, we're talking in the very heart of the civil rights movement. Yawu, talk to us about the major stories that the banner helped to cover to move that pendulum and move our people forward.
Certainly, I think a lot of the police coverage and the banner's advocacy around having more black officers hired on the force had profound changes for the police department that are still, relevant today.
And now we've had 2 police chiefs of color.
Right, and what Dorothy was saying about having the first black superintendent, in any city department, you'll find that if there's a black person in charge or a Latino person in charge, you'll find more managers, more people in higher paid positions.
More people of color.
More people of color, right, yeah, absolutely. So those early appointments were really important. Having somebody like Billy Celester just as a superintendent of Area B, he elevated a lot of black cops to detectives and, was able to push people into leadership positions. So, the banner's advocacy, the banner's coverage of those things, the fact that city officials knew we were watching had a tremendous impact and opened up doors for people in City Hall.
What were some of the other topics, Yawu? Because I know you spent a good portion of your journalistic career at the Banner. Other than the police force, talk about some of the other types of stories that you think pushed maybe political coverage, when the Bowlings were in office, or kind of talk a little bit about that. Because Boston, just to kind of tee it up, has a very bad reputation for civil rights, though we have some of the most prominent civil rights leaders and some of the most powerful civil rights warriors who come from Boston and who have pushed the pendulum for the country overall. So share with us some of the things that came out, through the banner's coverage to move that needle forward.
I'd say in the last quarter century, in the political realm, we saw the city go from being majority white to being majority people of color. And in the years since then, we've seen political representation, particularly in City Hall, expand to the point where now we've had Kim Janey and now Michelle Wu as the first elected first mayors of the city who weren't Irish or Italian in the last 100 years. The majority of the city council is now people of color. Women are now, the majority of elected officials have been at different times in the city council. So, yeah, we've seen profound changes in the political sphere in Boston, and the banner has been on the forefront of covering those campaigns, and also making sure that the elected officials, such as Ayanna Pressley, who's the first black congressional rep, although we did also, the banner did cover the first black senator post-Reconstruction in the United States, which was Ed Brooke.
Ed Brooke,
So,
yes.
So yeah, the banner's been there in the trenches covering the campaigns, but also covering the issues that elected officials of color have brought to the fore.
And am I correct that Ed Brooke and Mel were at least cordial and did know each other back
Yeah,
at the time?
absolutely.
Yeah.
At that time in the community, Mel Miller knew everybody.
Yeah, Mel was the man. So I'm going to come over here and talk with you, Brian, a little bit about our wonderful political system here in Boston and politics. I know that's a lane that you've skated in for many years. Can you share with us some of the stories that you felt helped move Boston towards a more just community that the banner helped to write?
Yeah, there was right after I joined the paper, we went from citywide representation to district representation. So there was an immediate expansion of black political power in Boston. But the steam went out a little bit because of people expected advances to occur more quickly than they did. And it gave rise to some disaffection that was reflected in the creation of a movement for Boston's African American neighborhoods to secede from the city. And though the efforts electorally did not succeed, it ignited a fiery debate over black independence, self-sufficiency, of black political sustainability, self-sustainability. And that was a campaign run by a guy named Andrew Jones, a former news producer for ABC and a concert violinist who had gone to prep school up here in New England. His efforts to focus the community on what could be done on our own attracted not only national attention, but global attention, and spurred an enormous debate. It was backed by leaders like Mel King, who had run, for mayor, was the first black finalist for mayor in the city of Boston, and Byron Rushing, his successor in the legislature. And that was, even though it did not succeed politically, it succeeded in advancing black economic and social interest in the city, and it made City Hall respond in a way that it would not otherwise have done.
Wonderful. Don, can you share with us some of, I know he mentioned Mel and one of the most prominent civil rights leaders of Boston over multiple centuries in the city where there are a lot of them. Talk to us a little bit about your experiences with Mel King and what that meant in the photos and images you created.
Well, just to begin that, as a photographer, I was the fly on the wall everywhere in Boston. And one of the things that I learned being around Mel King was that he had a breakfast every Sunday. And
I have been with my mom.
right, and
Food's quite good, by the way. It was quite
not
good.
everybody knew about that, but when you went to that breakfast, you might run into Jesse Jackson, or you might run into who knows who. But the whole breadth of the community would show up there on every Sunday. And he did that for years until shortly after shortly before he passed away.
And for a
That-
record, it was a potluck, so everybody
Yeah,
ate everybody's
right,
food.
right.
So you get a chance to share your culture, and
it was a-
everybody from Ray Flynn
right.
would come. And I mean, it
Right.
wasn't just folks who agreed with him all the time,
right.
but he made a point to invite a very diverse group of political
right,
and community leaders. Yeah.
And one thing to add about Mel is that the Rainbow Coalition model that he started in running in Boston is what Jesse Jackson picked up on, and it created the pathway for Deval Patrick and then Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And just to add one little, please, you mentioned Ray Flynn. On the night of the election, after a huge party at the Park
Plaza.
No, it wasn't the Park Plaza. It was
Parker House?
the Parker
Parker
House.
House. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So it was incredible. And after that, he wanted to go and see Ray Flynn. So I went with him with a number of other people. We went over to the Park Plaza where Ray was. And, one of the things as a photographer is always getting in ahead of the other photographers. So I was with Mel, and all the other photographers were in a pen outside because they knew he was coming. And I just kind of strolled on in with Mel. But the piece about it, what piece de resistance for me, was that they met upstairs in a hotel room, down a narrow, long hallway. When they finished, they came out, and there was a video photographer behind them as the two of them were walking down the hall. And he had his light on, the camera. So I had to bend down like this and back up and catch the shot as them coming down the hallway. Photographer's thing,
Yeah.
It was in the Globe the next day and in the Banner.
Yeah.
Wonderful shot. So, as we kind of conclude our first half of this wonderful conversation, I want to ask you guys a serious question. And unfortunately, one person who couldn't be here is Ken Cooper. Ken is one of our contributing editors and has been André Stark and my co-owners' educational editorial guru. André and I both came from broadcast and various other forms of media, but not print. So Ken Cooper, I just want to give you a shout out. I understand you're out of town, you can't be here, but thank you for your guidance and support. And when I speak with Ken, a lot of times we talk about two major things. What are we most concerned about? And then what are we most hopeful and happy and hopeful about and joyful about? So I want to end off this half hour with those two questions. I'll start off on this side with you, Yawu. What are you most concerned about for the state of Massachusetts and for our country? And then after that, if you could share with us, what are you most hopeful about and joyful about?
I'd say the rising inequality in the country, we see it in Boston with people of color not being able to afford to live in the city. That part of the Commonwealth where the most home sales to Black and Latino people is at Brockton, not Boston, even though Boston has the highest number. So that people of means who want to buy homes can't afford to do so here. What will that do to the future of the city? What gives me hope is seeing the number of people of color with decision-making power, both in City Hall here in Boston, in the State House, that the Black and Latino caucus has more members now than it ever has. Across the Commonwealth, Black and Latino people, Asians are in positions of power and decision-making, and I think it's having a good effect on the way things are unfolding in the Commonwealth, in many respects. But I think rising inequality in wealth, inequality in incomes, it's a major issue that I don't see enough movement on in this state.
Wonderful, but the joy and the positive are the growth in political power and economic power for our people. Dorothy, over to you.
Yes. Well, if you or anyone hasn't seen the special section that the Banner put out last week for the 60th anniversary, reading that just made me take a look at what's going on now. And we're seeing, I think, still a lot of the same issues. We're still talking about them, even though we've made progress. So I think we're going to have to, or maybe the historians will have to do this, look and see what did change and how did it change? I agree with Yawu that living here is difficult. Neighborhoods have changed, demographics have changed. There's a lot of gentrification. There's a lot of talk about affordable housing, but it's hard to see the affordable housing and where that's going. But I think that if we teach people in the community, or not exactly teach them like they're in a classroom, but show them
illustrate, share.
that, we're here, we've been doing this for a while. The community is not going to quit. It's just going to keep being active. And we all need to be together and active in this.
It's easy to get discouraged, but within our own community, there's a tremendous amount of positivity, growth, and support, and that's what you're happy for, and we definitely
Yes.
can be happy about that. Brian, concerns and
Yeah, well,
joy and
Concerns and joy. You know, I had
opposites? No.
one of the most moving stories I ever covered was the reopening of the African Meeting House after years of renovations, owned by the Museum of African American History in Boston, a meeting house on Beacon Hill built by Black hands. And I was there not too long ago with some visitors from out of town to see it, and there were school kids there sitting enraptured, listening to the history of this place, completely unaware of what had happened in Boston. And for them to see that this beautiful neighborhood had once been the home of Boston's Black community was astounding to them, and it was very moving to me. But there is definitely an erosion of cultural, political, social awareness of Black history. And just on my Uber ride over here, I was talking to a young guy who grew up in Jamaica Plain in the Bromley Heath projects. He didn't know the banner.
person of color.
African American kid didn't know the banner.
We got to
And
do
I
our
was
job
talking-
better. We got to do it.
And
My team is out there. We
I
got to do
know,
our
I know.
job better, guys. There's
but
people out
this-
there
look,
that don't know about
this
it.
is an all-star cast on this table, and we've done our best to help educate and inform. But I'm very concerned seeing the drop in literacy, the obsession with social media, that we are not creating the intellectual infrastructure that can take us beyond to the next level.
That
any
is a
longer.
serious concern. A little bit of your joy, a little bit of your joy, a little bit what you're happy about.
Well, the joy was seeing those kids in the African Meeting House.
Okay, you started with joy, okay.
And and
The light in their eyes, the excitement,
exactly,
the
absolutely. But the
understanding.
other
Yeah,
side
that is
was
joyful.
someone who. Well, he said he's going to watch this show.
Okay.
So that's going to be the start of the turnaround.
One more viewer and
Yeah,
reader, and
exactly.
one more we can educate. Don.
Well, my feeling is the invasion of our democracy.
That's your biggest concern.
And I think that is our number one concern at the moment. And I've been very disappointed to some degree about our approach to solving the problem. We control the money. Billionaires are billionaires because of our money. And what I saw all along was boycotting. And I saw some of it, but not really organized. The first one against Tesla worked very nicely, but that was organic. We need it organized throughout. And I tried to speak here and there to certain elected officials to kind of encourage that, but I didn't see very much of that. So I'm not in a happy place regarding those kind of things. I think we can overcome, because I think this administration is derelict in many levels. And I think they're going to implode. I'm hoping for it. So that's just, and so I don't have any happiness around a lot of that. I have the happiness and the possibility that we can overcome.
And that's based on your understanding of our culture and our history, and that we've
And
seen this playbook before.
and our real power.
Our real power. Yeah.
I think our real power will surface.
Yeah. I wrote an editorial this week about boycotts and supporting our own community, and how we must use the tools that we used in the past to fight the injustices of the present, because they worked in the past, and utilizing those tools can.
But we have to see
continue.
what tools we have at the moment. We've been stripped of a lot of our tools in our power, but we still have one substantial.
No, the boycott is very, I mean, as I reminded folks recently, the power of the boycott was illustrated by the Jimmy Kimmel removal. And you know how everybody canceled their ABC Disney
We have
Plus,
the
and next thing
power.
you know, he was right back on the air.
That's
He was
right.
right back on the air. Well, I
War
wanna-
is over if you wish,
Yeah, well, again, it's funny you say
or
that.
want.
Yeah, well, the war isn't over until you stop fighting. And another thing from my editorial this week is very timely. But I want to thank all of you for joining us for our first half of our television forum. And we're going to be moving on to our second half hour with the new guard, the folks who are with us, working with us now on the paper, and who have been with us only for the couple, 2.5+ years that we've owned the paper. But I want to thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Ron. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the Newsfeed Cafe. GBH Amplifies the Bay State Banner News. So thank you for joining us for our second half hour with what I call the newbies, the new guard, the folks who work with the banner now, and still joining us on our panel. To my far right is Yawu Miller. Yawu's got his new online journalistic nonprofit that's going. We'll let him share some more information about his organization as well. To my right and his left is our staff writer, Avery Bleichfeld. Avery has been with us. He's been with the paper prior to our arrival and kept on, and he is now our full-time staff writer. So thank you, Avery, for all your great work. To my left is Amber Payne. Amber is our newest add to the banner team. Amber is a contributing editor and hopefully soon to be more. Amber came over. She was the former editor and publisher and general manager of The Emancipator. And then to her left, and at my far left, is Brejé Williams. And Brejé is our streaming news anchor, and he is our face of our digital presence, and he also helps a lot to maintain and expand our reach with younger viewers. So thank you all for being here and joining me as we celebrate 60 years of the legacy of the Bay State Banner. So let's start out with you, Avery. Can you share with us how you became a writer for the banner? And I know Yawu was your boss when you first started. So share with us how you got involved with the banner.
So I became part of the banner team. I was a co-op from Northeastern. And so I was on the 6-month cycle as sort of just general assignment reporter. And I was really excited to be able to tackle local news coverage. I think that's something that's really important. And I was really excited to be able to get my hands dirty with that here in Boston.
Great. Amber, I know that you are new on the team and we reached out to you, but what has it been like since your short tenure with us, and what's important, why was it important for you to come on and be willing to work with us?
No, so I've been working with you all for the last, maybe 6 months or
6
so
months,
almost, as a contributing editor. It's been amazing to work with the community paper, just the fact that you have a lot of, I've been working with some of your younger writers, some of your newer writers, and I really love that side of things with mentorship, and I really just respect the history of the paper and everything that they've done in the community and being that community presence. You know, these days local news and community news is just more important than ever, you know, especially with Black communities. That's who they trust, their local paper, and having people who represent their interests, who look like them, who actually take the time to connect with them, really makes a difference in the storytelling. So I'm just enjoying really seeing the different stories that we're focusing on and how we're really, you know, keeping that community connection.
Well, thank you. It is important, and thank you for joining us and being here today. Brejé, what brought you, I mean, I know I reached out to you, but why did you decide to join the banner and help us with our digital presence and present the news to a younger audience? Why was that important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Bay State Banner is a pillar and a cornerstone, as you were saying, to the community. Local news is very important, as you were saying as well. I think most of my news came from social media growing up. I went to Suffolk University. Community news, I didn't always hear a lot about through my local news or where I got it from. And studying politics, philosophy, and economics in school at Suffolk, I wanted to be more involved in my community. My mom always told me, be the change that you want to see. And being part of what the banner's always represented is, you know, volumes to that.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. So being part of that's super important. And I've had a background in entertainment, being on social media, content creation, and coming from being a newspaper solely to going into the social media and digital stream, it seemed like a great opportunity for something that I'm passionate about and that I think a lot of young people want to be more involved with. So being a representation of that for the banner, to expand upon that, it's an honor to do so. So that's what brought me in to do that.
Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate your input and your help. And, you know, I often like to share with folks the reason why André and I purchased the banner. Unfortunately, he is not available to be with us today. We are receiving an award from Keolis, one of our recurring sponsors for various different events, and he is receiving that honor on our behalf. So I want to just say thank you, André, for all your work, for coming down this road and partnering with me from the beginning as we researched and decided to purchase the banner, and working with me every day through our trials and tribulations to help keep up the quality of journalism that Mel created 6 decades ago. On that note, Yawu, let's talk a little bit about what is so important to our community as far as reaching a younger audience. It was imperative in our design of buying the banner that we upgraded the website, that we created digital forms of our stories with our half-hour newscast that Brejé hosts. But equally more important, it wasn't just to create a half-hour sit-down format of the news, which is traditional and an old school format, but it was to give us the opportunity to cut our stories into smaller 1 and 2 minute pieces, and then to have our wonderful editors and our wonderful interns. Hi guys, they're out there, they're here today. Cut that up and work on social media and get that out there. So talk to us about the importance of getting local news, black-owned publications and black-owned, the stories of the black community, real stories out to a younger audience.
In research that I did, or focus groups in the community, looking at, when I was looking to start a nonprofit news organization, which I did start, I found that a majority of people who we reached out to in the Black and Latino community get their news from the internet. They get their news from social media. So while the print operation is critically important, there are many people in our community who get their news primarily through print. And certainly, I work with Nicole Abrams at the flip side, and when our articles are reprinted and she sees her name on the front page, it's a source of great pride for her. Still, younger people particularly are getting their news increasingly through social media, to maybe a little less likely to pick up a print copy. So yeah, it's where the future is.
Definitely. Avery, I'd like to talk with you a little bit more about what stories that you covered. What were some of the most important stories for you that you covered? I know when we spoke with you about becoming a full-time writer for us, you wanted to make sure that you would be on the science beat. We encouraged you to look at that in the broadest sense, and you were amenable to that, and you've covered a lot of amazing stories. So share with us some of the most important stories that you feel you've covered.
One of the things that comes to mind in that broad science umbrella, we've been doing ongoing coverage of the Edgar Benjamin Healthcare Center in Mission Hill, almost 100-year-old nursing home there on Mission Hill that has, for the past 18 months or so, been about to close, then it was saved from closure, now it's in a receivership, now they're trying to sell it to keep it open. And so they were actually back in court this morning, being able to follow that and hear from community members about what that coverage has meant to them has been really cool. The other thing on the science front that I'd love to note is our climate coverage and being able to tackle stories about what climate change really means to the communities we serve has been a real honor and a real exciting opportunity for me.
So kind of talking about the on-the-ground effects, not just theoretical, but real-life on-the-ground effects of climate change and how it affects our community. Your stories have been very impactful, so thank you so much for sharing that with us. Amber, I want to come over to you and ask you, in your short 6 months with us, what are some of the stories, and even broader, as you were obviously running the Emancipator, over the past maybe 6 or 8 years, not that you've been at the Emancipator that long, but over the recent past, what are some of the stories that you felt have really affected our community that were important to you?
Well, I mean, I've been here in Boston since the fall of 2020. I did a journalism fellowship where I was thinking about these issues that we're all grappling with. How do you get outside the echo chamber? How do you get outside the bubble? And you want to tell stories that are about race and equity in a way that do not isolate, do not push people away, do not scare people away with a headline, but also having a bold headline, a clear headline, a direct headline. I remember, in the 2012s, just, articles that, racially charged. Well, what does that mean? And having the boldness as a publication and as an outlet to really call things as you see them and really explain to people, and not just have a headline that's clickbait, but to really explain to people, like, well, what is the history and the context of maybe what happened, of this word that was used, of a slur that was used, or of the way that a community may be treated. And so I think that's what I've been thinking about a lot in the last 5 to 8 years in my time, and in running the Emancipator. That's another thing we were thinking about. How do you show people that this is not a zero-sum game, that racism and the toxic impacts us all. It impacts your bottom line. It impacts your pocketbook. It impacts where you choose to buy a house. Where do you want your kids to go to school? There's a through line there. And I think, the Banner has obviously been reporting on these issues of communities, of redlining, of, why is a neighborhood, why does it look this way? Why does it sound this way? Avery, working on climate change. Okay, why is there so little tree cover in this neighborhood? And who's doing something about it? So I think, our challenge is, covering these issues about equity and really explaining to people, how did we get here? And, but also importantly, where are we gonna go? Talking to the right scholars and the right community leaders who are really trying to build solutions. So, I've also thought a lot about solutions journalism. It's a real practice. It's not just feel-good storytelling. It's, showing that there are limitations, but also showing that there is possibility and helping people to kind of reimagine their communities, understand the buy-in that they should have in their communities. And so, the stories that we're doing, and, I do work a lot with Avery, which I really enjoy, and having those climate stories that also really give that thread. And we're going to report the news, but we're also going to give you, we're going to explain this term. What is environmental justice? Yeah, we might need to explain it in every story because we don't know if everybody's read all of Avery's work. So, those are the kinds of little things in the editing, on the editing side, that I'm always looking and listening for. As well as just, I've enjoyed the stories that we're doing on business leaders and entrepreneurs. And our one of our writers she always leaves you with this note, well, what do you want other entrepreneurs of color to know? What do you think you want to pass on? So that's another thing that we're doing. We're really inspiring other communities. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is definitely the legacy that we're trying to continue with what Mel created with the Banner. Brejé, talk to us about some of the most important stories that you felt you covered in our streaming newscast, through the
Absolutely.
paper.
You've did a great job of outlining the things that we're covering, Avery's, you as well. I really love that the climate change and environmental justice, civil rights as it is really today, because it really covers what is a problem in our greater Boston area. We had the urban heating problem with the tree canopies and how construction is causing asthma issues in our cities for our young people. Those were big stories that I love to cover on, honestly, some of my favorites. I really like the culture and community spaces when we have restaurants opening up in Somerville or in Boston or in South Bay, just to uplift the people that are out here making small businesses. Those are huge to our community, where they can go out and eat food, have fun, and enjoy themselves. And I think for the young people as well, I was trying to gear myself toward looking at what they have to get insight from, where they can have bridges for themselves, right? And we cover so much for the community, but I love these pipeline programs. For example, when young people are trying to acquire assets, and we have financial literacy pieces that we do.
Articles on
and for like the One United Bank opportunity for them to have $50,000 for them to put a down payment on their house and have the closing costs taken care of. A lot of these things exist, but a lot of people in our community, a lot of the young people don't know they exist. So covering a lot of those things are super fun for me and enjoyable.
Well, I have to say that growing up in Boston area and reading the Banner, my mother had it in our house since I was very, very little. And it definitely was a source of opportunity for our community. And Yawu, can you talk to us about why, and I spoke on it a little bit, but why you think Mel and yourself were so committed to making sure that those opportunities were listed in the paper, that it wasn't just a litany of the struggles, but it was also a litany of the opportunities and the successes and joys.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin was always aware of the challenges we face, but also wanted people to understand that, we've won a lot of battles that are, in civil rights, that people who came before us opened doors, and it's on us to walk through those doors. I think it's always been very important. I think, similar to what you guys are doing now, that he always wanted to feature businesses, show people of color. He has tremendous pride in Roxbury, and having grown up in Roxbury, during the time it became a majority black community, and he always points out to people who are from the community who've gone on to do amazing things. So, it's always been, the Banner. When you think about it, it's like in battle, You have olden days, you'd have like a flag or something that, that was a standard that people followed and into battle and, just to inspire people. So I think he always saw it in that light. That
So his banner was the banner that led the
news
challenge.
coverage
and,
was again, highlight what the problems are, but also highlight the successes and inspire people to push for more.
Without question, without question. As I look forward to the next few years of what the banner is going to be about, and as we continue, I am moved by the support that we have received from the community and the support that the community has brought to bear. One of the new tools that I brought to the paper, André and I brought to the paper, is a nonprofit, adjacent nonprofit, called the Banner Institute for Community News. And the goal for the Banner Institute for Community News as a nonprofit is not only to support the Bay State Banner, but to support community newspapers around the country. So your online news platform is one that has the opportunity to benefit. So talk to us a little bit, Yawu, about your platform. I know you share stories with us, but why you felt it was important to do it. I'll give you another few moments to talk about that.
Yeah, again, so many people get their news primarily online. So, we thought it was important to reach out to people and sort of in the platforms like in social media. We push our stuff out through social media. We see an opportunity to. I guess I'd been in for-profit media for, the better part of 30 years. So I, saw new opportunities in the nonprofit side of things. And I think it's a, very exciting time to be in nonprofit news. It's also very challenging. So, it just seemed like a natural next step. Also, a way to continue writing for the Banner and making, the stories that we publish are available to any publication that wants to republish them.
Thank you for that. We really do appreciate it. So I want to come back over here and talk with you, Amber, a little bit about what your hope is for our community going forward and what you see as the joy that we bring, or not just the paper, but the joy our community brings.
Yeah, I think it's really such an opportunity for community engagement. I started to talk a little bit about that community connection and how do we build upon, yes, we're covering the community, we're doing stories about them, we're highlighting. How do we bring together dialogue? How do we actually bring people into a room? And remember that? Talking to each other?
Yeah, conversation.
not texting.
Yeah.
I think that is exciting. But hey, we really can't deny that, yeah, we all have our phone in our hand and we are swiping. So I think I do get excited about, that opportunity to connect with people in new ways. You don't have to have news delivered in one way. I mean, yes, the Banner is, you're committed to that. You're going to have it in your hand and you can open it up and you can put it down and drink your coffee, but also finding those ways where there's an off-platform experience and there's an in-person experience and there's just a way to really reflect the community. We want to be seen. We want to be seen in our media, in our journalism, and I think just that opportunity to mentor and bring up the next generation of reporters.
It is very easy in today's climate to get discouraged. And I think that it was very important to André and I when we purchased the paper and our coverage that we helped to create, that we tell the joys of our community, because the joys is what have kept us as a community moving forward despite the many struggles. It's our superpower, I like to say. And with that, I think that we, despite how scary it may be for some folks and some of the concerns we all have, we still have our superpower, our inner joy, and our community strength that has got us through for many, many decades and will continue to, well, centuries actually, if we're really counting. So as we kind of wrap up, I'd like to think about and ask all of you one last quick question. If you could, in one sentence, wrap up what community journalism and black newspaper mean to you, what would that be? I'm going to start over here with you, Brejé. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. You go first.
Well, it means everything, because you're the change that you want to be, and it starts with the voices that are in our community. It starts with the people that are in it, working for it, and have been in it. And we're crossing those generations, those bridges together at the Banner, and I think that's a huge opportunity.
Amber?
Asset framing, so defining a community by their strength and by who they are. That is just always the opportunity.
Thank you. Avery?
I would say the reason I was drawn to local community reporting in the first place was it feels like there's so much more that you can really see that's happening and so much more that's really going on in a concrete sense. And so I think following those stories and telling those stories and bringing them to people who need to know them.
Thank you.
Point of view, that when you write for a black newspaper, you're writing from the perspective of the people in the community, and it's oftentimes at odds with what you read in other publications. But I think it's really, really important that people in Boston understand where we're coming from and that we see ourselves and our perspectives reflected in news coverage.
Well, thank you. So as we wrap up, I want to remind you all that you've been watching the GBH Amplifies Bay State Banner conversation, and we are honored to celebrate 60 years of the Bay State Banner. I want to thank all of my guests, starting with the folks on my panel, Yawu Miller, Avery Bleichfeld, Amber Payne, and Brejé Williams. I also want to thank my earlier guests, Dorothy Clark, Brian O'Connor, and Don West, of course. And I'd like to remind all of you that the Banner staff really have a love for journalism and a love for our country and our community, and we'll continue to honor Mel Miller's legacy for as long as we can and provide real journalism to our community. I want to thank the Newsfeed Cafe here at the Boston Public Library. I want to thank all of our GBH family, especially the GBH production staff, Maggie Geller, excuse me if I murder your name, Chris Hanks, Terry Quinn, Bill Francis, and Howard Powell. Thank you all for helping us with our production. I'm sorry. Of course, Sandra Lopez Burke, who I see is not on this list. Thank you, Sandra. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here and remind you that next month, we'll be continuing our Bay State Banner GBH Amplifies Forum. Our next taping will be November 13th, right here at the Newsfeed Cafe. Our coverage will be on post-election special. It will be following the City of Boston elections. We'll be meeting the new guard and many of the old guard who have been reelected, and we'll be talking about the issues that help to move our city forward. So thank you again for joining us. I also want to thank my Bay State Banner staff who is here in the audience. Can you guys stand up? Can you all stand, staff and interns? And thank you. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Yeah, there you are.
I want to thank Lynn Duval-Luce. I want to thank my wonderful wife, Lisa, and Juanita. And for those of you who are here live in the Newsfeed Cafe in our audience, I want to remind you that we're going to continue our forum with the Community Talkback section right up the street from here at the Rose Bar Restaurant, located at 47 Huntington Ave at the corner of Exeter and Huntington. I'm Ron Mitchell, your host for GBH Amplifies, the Bay State Banner. I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.